Air Force Captain Harold May was in the radar center at Andrews AFB during the sightings of July 19 to 20th. Upon hearing that National Airport's radar had picked up an unknown object heading in his direction, May stepped outside and saw a light that was changing from red to orange to green to red again. At times it dipped suddenly and appeared to lose altitude. However, May eventually concluded that he was simply seeing a star that was distorted by the atmosphere, and that its movement was an illusion. At 3 a.m. on July 27th, an Eastern Airlines flight over Washington was told that an unknown object was in its vicinity. The crew could see nothing unusual. When they were told that the object had moved directly behind their plane, they began a sharp turn to try to see the object, but were told by National Airport's radar center that the object had disappeared when they began their turn. At the request of the Air Force, the CAA's Technical Development and Evaluation Center did an analysis of the radar sightings. Their conclusion was that a temperature inversion had been indicated in almost every instance when the unidentified radar targets or visual objects had been reported. Project Blue Book would eventually label the unknown Washington radar blips as false images caused by temperature inversion, and the visual sightings as misidentified meteors, stars, and city lights. In later years, two prominent UFO skeptics, Dr. Donald Menzel, an astronomer at Harvard University, and Philip Klass, a senior editor for Aviation Week magazine, would also argue in favor of the temperature inversion mirage hypothesis. In 2002, Klass told a reporter that radar technology in 1952 wasn't sophisticated enough to filter out many ordinary objects, such as flocks of birds, weather balloons, or temperature inversions. The reporter added that UFO proponents argue that even then seasoned controllers could differentiate between spurious targets and solid, metallic objects. Klass disagrees. It may be that we had two dumb controllers at National Airport on those nights. Klass added that the introduction of digital filters in the 1970s led to a steep decline in UFO sightings on radar. In his book, The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects, author Edward J. Ruppelt wrote that radar and control tower personnel he spoke to, as well as some Air Force officers, disagreed with the Air Force's explanation. Michael Wertheimer, a researcher for the government-funded Condon Report, investigated the case in 1966 and stated that radar witnesses still disputed the Air Force explanation. Former radar controller Howard Coughlin told the Washington Post in 2002 that he was still convinced that he saw an object, which I saw it on the radar screen and out the window over Washington National Airport. The extremely high numbers of UFO reports in 1952 disturbed both the Air Force and the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. Both groups felt that an enemy nation could deliberately flood the US with false UFO reports, causing mass panic and allowing them to launch a sneak attack. On September 24, 1952, the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence, OSI, sent a memorandum to Walter B. Smith, the CIA's director. The memo stated that the flying saucer situation has national security implications. In the public concern with the phenomena lies the potential for the touching off of mass hysteria and panic. The result of this memorandum was the creation in January 1953 of the Robertson Panel. Dr. Howard P. Robertson, a physicist, chaired the panel, which consisted of prominent scientists and which spent 4 days examining the best UFO cases collected by Project Blue Book. The panel dismissed nearly all of the UFO cases it examined as not representing anything unusual or threatening to national security. In the panel's controversial estimate, the Air Force and Project Blue Book needed to spend less time analyzing and studying UFO reports and more time publicly debunking them. The panel recommended that the Air Force and Project Blue Book should take steps to strip the unidentified flying objects of the special status they have been given and the aura of mystery they have unfortunately acquired. Following the panel's recommendation, Project Blue Book would rarely publicize any UFO case that it had not labeled as solved. Unsolved cases were rarely mentioned by the Air Force.